Tonight, some tenants lost everything, and St. John's lost affordable housing in a pair of morning fires.
So we've had a very busy morning. Hats off to all our crews. They done an outstanding job at both locations.
Firefighters battled two significant fires this morning. We'll take you to the scenes. While the tent encampment near Confederation Building continues, some homeless protesters have moved to a second camp in Bannerman Park.
Virtual care provided by a private company. I'll tell you more about the concerns of physicians in this province.
We don't need any more incentives for physicians to leave primary care practice to deliver virtual care.
Coming up later in the show.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. Amid an ongoing housing shortage, St. John's has lost some of its affordable homes. A fire early this morning tore through multiple homes in downtown St. John's, prompting a massive response from firefighters. It destroyed a recently renovated Newfoundland and Labrador housing unit with multiple apartments inside. Elizabeth Whitten has the story.
Just before 8 a.m., firefighters responded to a call on Livingstone Street and Lime Street. 24 firefighters responded, but as you can see behind me, one of those houses is a total loss. The fire started here at 59 Lime Street and quickly jumped next door on the corner of Livingstone Street.
It's our house is on fire, buddy.
St. John's Regional Fire Department Chief Roger Hounsell said they received a report of a fire around 7:45 a.m.
So we laid an attack line initially and started to do an interior attack. And then once we got so far, then the fire was too heavy, so we had to come out and then start to do a defensive attack on the fire.
The street was a hive of activity as firefighters worked throughout the morning with as many as 5 hoses firing at once. Firefighters also used the ladder truck to get at the blaze and a chainsaw to cut through parts of the house.
We have multiple crews here. We have 3 stations here, plus another crew called in. So we're good on manpower and we're good on water and resources.
Crews expected battling the blaze would take up most of the day. NDP leader and the MHA for the area also stopped by the scene to see if people were all right. Jim Dinn was also lamenting the loss of the Livingstone Street, which was a Newfoundland and Labrador housing property. It had recently been renovated, and its destruction comes at a time when there's a housing crisis gripping the province.
The loss of any affordable housing units or Newfoundland and Labrador housing units is going to be significant and put significant strain on the system. And they're going to be looking for a place to live.
Dinn says he expects people will be reaching out to his office for help finding homes. Elizabeth Whitten, CBC News, St. John's.
Now, there were people living in 2 of the Newfoundland and Labrador housing units in that building. The NLHC says a family from one of the units is now in emergency housing, and the Red Cross has put the other tenant in a hotel. As firefighters were on the scene dealing with that fire earlier today, a second one broke out at a business in another part of the city. Fire crews arrived at Akita Equipment on the TCH near Paddy's Pond around 11:30 this morning. The company's main building was burning. Crews used water from the nearby pond to fight the blaze. The RNC will investigate the cause and says no one was hurt. It made for a busy morning for the city's fire department.
So we've had a very busy morning. Hats off to all our crews. They done an outstanding job at both locations. We still have crews on Livingstone Street. We have crews called in, but they're doing an exceptional job here today. And we do also have some high windy conditions, so that's certainly not helping us. But we've gained the upper hand now on both fires, and hats off to our crews. Well, people have been living in a homeless encampment on Confederation Hill in St. John's for almost a month now. The number of tents and protesters is dwindling, but a second camp has been set up near the Colonial Building. Advocates and volunteers say they want areas dedicated to tent encampments and include services for the homeless people who stay there. Here Now's Heather Gillis reports.
homeless still on Confederation Hill. This protest for safe, permanent and affordable housing is now into its 4th week.
I don't know what to do. I honestly don't know what to do. This has been the most stressful part of my life ever.
Stephen Blake says he's been rent evicted out of his house. Last week he went to a shelter, but says it wasn't fit with rodent feces around. So it was back to the encampment, but that didn't work out either.
Some psycho with a knife slashed my son's tent. Yeah. And we don't feel safe here. We don't feel safe downtown at and so we've gone camping somewhere else.
Meaning his homelessness is now hidden. Blake says he was at the housing office to fill out forms after his stint at the shelter, but says he hasn't been offered anything since.
Oh, we'll call you. No call, that was Thursday.
As you can see, it's pretty windy here on Confederation Hill today, and the number of people living in tents here has started to dwindle. This as winter weather is on the way, with snow followed by rain in the forecast tonight.
Tents behind the Colonial Building are a little more sheltered, but tensions were high this morning between some of the homeless campers. They didn't want to speak to CBC News on camera. Mark Wilson has been volunteering to help the people here, but thinks instead of volunteers, all levels of government should be stepping up more.
Somebody's got to step in and treat this like the actual crisis that it is.
Wilson says he wants St. John's to designate areas for tent encampments like in Halifax, where he says that municipality is also collecting garbage and delivering water.
They are bringing in things called pallet houses, which are small houses, like tiny houses, or like a cabin of some sort for homeless folks. And they're also investigating indoor space for tent city residents to get them out of the cold, because we know winter's coming as early as tonight.
Wilson says he'd also like to see the City of St. John's open up park bathrooms longer and offer the Bannerman Park pool house for the campers to shower. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the province's infrastructure minister says they'll make a decision in the coming weeks about the future of a replacement for Her Majesty's Penitentiary. The crumbling prison is infested with rodents and mold, and more than once the province has promised a new one is coming. For advocates who are waiting, the situation has never been so dire. Ariana Kellant reports.
In 1966, Assistant Superintendent John Fagan penned this letter, recommending a location for a new jail to replace HMP, then over 100 years old, marking perhaps the first but certainly not the last time someone has asked to replace the Dickens-era facility. Later came the promises. In 2013,
but we can wait no longer to begin the process. For the well-being of our staff and our inmates, we must start planning a new facility.
In 2019,
the same timeline, same time frames as the new mental health facility, so it's a 30 to 36 month start to finish.
And now.
Do you see a world in which this won't be approved?
No.
Infrastructure Minister John Abbott on the future construction of a new prison. But when and for how much, well, that's less certain.
We've been reviewing the future of the penitentiary, what it can look like, what it should look like, what it could cost, what we can afford.
The consortium of companies that won the tender submitted the plan, including the design and cost, a year ago. But there's been no movement. In 2019, the province said it would cost more than $200 million. It's now expected to be much higher than that.
What we are struggling with, I guess is the best word to use, is the actual capital cost for the facility. And we want to make sure we got the right costing done, because once we start this, we can't go back.
Advocate George Shepherd hopes things will move forward soon.
And there's a desperation by families who feel helpless, by inmates who feel unheard.
After years of talk, reports, and failed promises, Shepherd says it's clear there has been no political will for a new prison. This time, Abbott insists, will be different.
And I think in the past that has probably been a factor in some of the deliberations by governments and others. But as I said earlier, I think we're well past that.
Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
The province's doctors are concerned about the health department's plan to use a private company to provide virtual physician coverage in Newfoundland and Labrador. The Medical Association wants to know how the virtual doctors will be paid and also wants guarantees that no community doctors will be lost to the new virtual service. Here now's Mark Quinn reports.
The province's Medical Association has lots of questions about virtual medical coverage. Its leaders say virtual care will have a place in the future, but they don't know enough about the government's current plan to fully endorse it.
One of the things we learned from COVID was that virtual care is a valuable entity, but one of the questions that's come out is in what context? If it is a short-term measure to overcome the significant backlog we have in folks without primary care, then I think it's an option, but I don't think it's something that should be considered in the long term.
The health minister says that by the end of November, everyone in the province without a family doctor will be able to get virtual physician care, and so will people who need emergency care in New West Valley. But Tom Osborne hasn't said how much it will cost or how they'll pay physicians. The Medical Association still has concerns and wants the province to pay community-based family doctors and virtual ones equally.
We certainly don't want to see another situation like you've got with the traveling nurses and the 811 system, where 811 is getting significantly more to take a phone call than the physicians are sometimes to see that patient as a result of that phone call. We don't need any more incentives for physicians to leave primary care practice to deliver virtual care.
Today, Tom Osborne said the new service won't take physicians away from community-based practices.
We have put into the RFP that the proponent is not able to poach doctors from this province.
The provincial government is promising that it will release more details about this plan in the weeks to come. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the RCMP has charged 32-year-old George Pastichy with attempted murder. It's connected to a violent assault in Shehajit over the weekend. He was arrested on Saturday and appeared in court today on the attempted murder charge. The 32-year-old is also facing 7 other charges, including aggravated assault, uttering threats, and possession of a weapon. Police say the investigation is continuing. Well, disability advocates say the government isn't doing enough to make sure all buildings are accessible. The government is looking at changing the law to increase accessibility, and as Peter Cowan reports, even some provincially owned buildings still aren't accessible.
If you're called for jury duty and you have a physical disability, even getting into the Supreme Court in St. John's can be a challenge. The building opened in 1904, long before accessibility was a consideration. The current rules say buildings built before 1981 don't have to be updated for accessibility when you're doing minor renovations. But new legislation says any area being renovated now needs to meet the National Building Code.
What we're introducing today and applying with the National Building Code gives our team the flexibility to work with building owners to make things as accessible as they possibly can. So we can all think of an example of a really old heritage building, for example, that may not be able to be fully accessible.
Nothing she's doing improves accessibility whatsoever.
Today, disability advocates gathered in the House of Assembly concerned that there's a loophole that will leave many places inaccessible.
All they had to do is say, okay, we're just going to continue on and not do any renovations. We'll do our maintenance, but no renovations. Then they can remain inaccessible. And this is all the big buildings downtown. This is all buildings that are all over this province. This is government services, including public libraries.
What they recommended was to have a program to require all buildings to undergo updates over the course of 20 years to bring them up to date. The minister insists that new rules can only apply to new renovations, but the head of the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities says a plan to get all buildings accessible would be good for everyone.
But about 24% of our population are persons with disabilities. For businesses, needs to be a real understanding that if you're denying access to a huge portion of our population, that's got to have a negative impact on your bottom line.
The minister insists this new legislation will lead to more accessible buildings, but the coalition says there's need for more input.
We would like to see this paused so that we can go forward with the minister and see if we can come up with a solution.
The minister says the legislation will go ahead after years of consultations, but it doesn't mean it can't be updated later. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the province has awarded a $122,000 contract to ThinkWell Research to study fertility services in Newfoundland and Labrador. In 2021, Premier Andrew Furey promised to set up an in vitro fertilization clinic. The province has been offering a subsidy for people to go out of province for IFV treatments. The ThinkWell contract comes 1 year after the province first issued an RFP. Only one company submitted a proposal, so the government reissued the RFP.
There is a number of individuals who have a diagnosis of infertility, and they are looking for enhanced services in the province. So the RFP will give us, based on population, look at the demand for services, what can be viably offered in the province in terms of enhancements to fertility services.
Well, the Waterford Hospital in St. John's was locked down for a few hours today after a report of gunshots. Police arrived at the hospital shortly after 10:30 this morning. The RNC says there's no evidence to conclude that a weapons offense occurred, but fireworks were found on a nearby trail. The province's health authority confirmed the hospital was locked down. 4 nearby schools were also locked down, with 2 more in secure mode.
I'll go away for a week and come back to snow. That is the story as we head through the next couple of days. Unfortunately, these cooler temperatures are going to stick with us as well. This is where we sat this morning, 2 degrees in St. John's this morning, -2 in Badger. Those temperatures across Labrador as well into the minus single digits. But we do have a special weather statement in effect for Environment and Climate Change Canada. Now, this isn't a significant system, but what is significant is the fact that, number one, it's early in the season. Number two, it's our first snowfall for some of us. So Northern Peninsula, you're going to sit this one out, but there is a good chunk of the island that is going to see some snow as we head through tonight and into tomorrow, thanks to an area of low pressure just sliding south of Atlantic Canada, but it is bringing lots of snow through New Brunswick at the moment. But we are starting to see some of that snow across the island. It'll start as showers, likely already starting as showers for the Avalon. But where you are as far as elevation really plays a big role. Here's where we're sitting right now. We're already seeing some of that snow accumulating in Burgeo. We'll talk about how much is on the way when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Israel's military is pushing deeper into Gaza. Armored vehicles were seen traveling on the territory's main north-south road, and the UN is raising alarms about patients stuck in hospitals and unable to flee. Airstrikes on Gaza have not stopped, hitting more than 600 sites over the past 24 hours. The Trudeau government is calling for a humanitarian pause in fighting between Hamas and Israel, but Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says there will be no ceasefire. On Sunday in St. John's, hundreds of people marched along Water Street to show support for Palestinians caught up in the war.
On our own, we can't do anything. But with many others fighting for justice everywhere, we have a chance. But the most important point, always missed from coverage in Western media, is that these people are not numbers. They're families, lives, dreams, and deserve to live in freedom and dignity.
We demand that the Canadian government take decisive action and call for an immediate ceasefire. We demand that our Canadian leaders end the military and political backing of this genocide. We call on the Canadian government to impose sanctions on apartheid Israel, just as it once did with apartheid South Africa. Anything less is complicit to the murder of countless people.
As a Jew, I see the horror. I say, end the occupation. End the occupation. As a human, I see the injustice. I say, free Palestine! Free Palestine! As a citizen, I see your suffering. I say, ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! 1, 2, 3, 4.
European leaders will meet with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in St. John's next month for the Canada-EU Leaders Summit. The President of the European Council, Charles Michel, and the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, will be here. They'll talk about commitments made during the last summit in Belgium 2 years ago. Those include creating jobs, fighting climate change, and collaborating on research and innovation. The summit will run November 23rd and 24th. The leaders also plan to renew their support for strengthening trade under the Canada-EU Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement. Well, this is one of the thousands of farmed salmon now being harvested by Grieg from sea cages in Placentia Bay. This is the company's first commercial harvest after nearly a decade of development. They'll ship around 5,000 tons of salmon to Bay de Verde this fall and early winter, process them on a new production line at the Quinlan Brothers plant, and then ship them to across North America. The fish hatched and grew to smolt size at Grieg's operation in Marystown. They spent a year in the ocean near Southern Harbor. Now, Grieg says a second generation of salmon were placed into 3 new ocean farms this summer and will be harvested next year. Within 3 years, the company plans to grow annual production to 15,000 tons. Well, after nearly 150 years, the George Street United Church in downtown St. John's has closed its doors. There was a full house for the final service at the church yesterday, which has been forced to close due to rising costs and dwindling attendance. Church officials say the Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Center will continue, which has served hot meals at the church since 2002, but it's not clear if it will continue to operate from the church building. The closure of the church is a big loss for people like Pauline Windsor-Murin, who's been going to services there since 1951.
Well, it's tear-breaking. We're using boxes and boxes of Kleenex because tears are running down into our food even. But really, God is not just a building. So if we're worshiping God, we can do it any place.
A penalty cup coming to the Stingrays. They score! A redirection in front by Singleton.
Well, that was one of the few bright spots for the Newfoundland Growlers on Sunday. The boys in black were easily beaten by the South Carolina Stingrays 8-2. It was the third game between the two teams, with South Carolina handing the Growlers its first and then second losses of the new season. The Growlers now sit at 4 wins and 2 losses for the year. Newfoundland heads to Trois-Rivières next weekend for their first road trip of the season.
Well, speaking of the first of the season, some of us are going to see the first flakes fly. I'll talk about how much to expect coming up.
Welcome back, Ashley.
Thank
It's nice
you.
to see you.
Yes, for sure.
Not so nice to see that some snow is coming, though, for parts of the island.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that I just get back and then I have to talk about snow right away. But I mean, we are at the end of October, Halloween right around the corner. Most of us are going to need to wear a couple of layers, that's for sure, because we do have these cold temperatures in place right now. 7 degrees was the afternoon high in St. John's. We do have temperatures, though, across the province still in those single digits. The further west and north you go, the cooler it is. Corner Brook 4 degrees this afternoon. And those temperatures across Labrador, -2 was the daytime high in Nain. That is very typical this time of year. We are already seeing some snow, and we'll continue to see snow as we go forward, especially this week. Now, we've got an area of low pressure. This is bringing some weather, and we're already starting to see some of that weather through the southern portion of the island at the moment. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see that. Higher elevations further inland is where we're seeing that snow for now. I do think that most of us that are towards the coast, along the south coast of the island, although you may see a few flakes fly, I do think that this will be a mainly rain event for you. So we're going to see that work its way further east. Most of the Avalon is already seeing some showers. That bubble is starting to close over the metro area, and we will see some showers in the coming hours. As far as the future tracker is concerned, showing that a line of snow potentially developing pretty much from, say, Corner Brook through to Terra Nova and south. That's the best chance of seeing that snow tonight. And then including the Avalon as well. But along the south coast, extreme south coast of the island, I do think that this will fall as mainly as rain. But we are seeing some of that snow already in Burgeo that is accumulating on those grassy surfaces. We're in the shoulder season, and that typically means it hasn't been cold. We haven't seen all of that cold air yet. So what does fall will be very wet in nature as well. Temperatures tonight, although they will be fairly chilly, anywhere from -1 in Grand Falls, Windsor to -5 in St. Anthony, but otherwise between 0 and about +2. So those temperatures mean that areas that are close to the surface will likely see this fall as a wet snow. The higher up in elevation that you go, a better chance that you will see fall as rain. The higher up in elevation, the better chance that you will see some snow. Now, Labrador, Northern Peninsula, you're going to sit this out. Your temperatures are going to be minus single digits, -15 in Lab City overnight tonight. But that terrain, like I said, across the Avalon is really going to play a role in it. So the higher terrain areas are the ones that are in white. Basically, if you're in a higher terrain area, you know you are because you're in those higher elevations. So areas like Mount Pearl, Paradise, Kenmount Terrace in the metro area, the Barrens across the northwest Avalon as well. This is where we will more than likely see that snow. Just zooming in a little bit there on the northeast Avalon rather. You can see Conception Bay, you're near the surface. That's also why you typically see a lot less snow as well. Now, as far as snowfall amounts go, typically, I should say less than 2 to 5 centimeters is likely what we're going to see tonight. And it will be in those higher elevations. Now showing a bit more towards the Avalon, but I do think 5 will likely be the max that we will see. Now, as we head through tomorrow, that will clear out very quickly. We should actually see some sunshine for parts of the west coast, the interior, and by the time we get to trick-or-treating time, it actually looks pretty decent. We may see some lingering showers for the southwest corner of the province and along the south coast, but other than that, even up across Labrador, looking like a nice day. Cold though, because our daytime highs tomorrow are barely going to reach the single digits. If you see anywhere from 4 to about 7 degrees through the day, a lot less wind than there has been though for the past couple days as well. We're only looking at those winds gusting between about 20, maybe 40 kilometers per hour max in the afternoon, and they will ease as the day goes on. So although your temperatures will sit in the single digits, by the time we get to that, we're still looking at a bit of a wind chill, so you're certainly going to want to dress warm tomorrow. As far as Labrador goes, you're looking at your daytime highs sitting in the single digits for the southeast, Mary's Harbour around 3 degrees. But as we get towards the western portion of Labrador, your temperatures are only going to sit in the single digits. So Carolyn, it is going to be a cool day tomorrow for the little trick-or-treaters, but at least it'll be dry.
Yes, bundle up for sure for both the parents and the kids, but overall it looks pretty good. It's usually chilly this time of year, but at least it's not raining.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. Thanks, Ashley.
No problem.
Well, as we talked about earlier, it was a very busy day for firefighters in St. John's. Crews were called to a pair of houses on Livingstone Street just before 8 a.m. and then to Akita Equipment near Paddy's Pond just a couple of hours later. Deputy Chief Roger Housel spoke with the CBC's Terry Roberts this morning.
We've had a very busy morning. Hats off to all our crews. They done an outstanding job at both locations. We still have crews on Livingstone Street. We have crews called in, but they're doing an exceptional job here today. And we do also have some high windy conditions, so that's certainly not helping us. But we've gained the upper hand now on both fires, and hats off to our crews.
So you've had to call in firefighters who were off duty today. Is that what you've had to do?
Yeah, so what we've done is the fire this morning on Livingstone Street, it was right around the time that we switched crews. So we kept crews back from who were going off, and we also called in crews for that are off duty, that are called in on overtime, because we put other trucks, our spare engines on the run. Because we have so many stations out, so we still have other stations and other trucks looking after the rest of our region. We got other trucks now put in service.
You look back, we're almost at the end of 2023. How, like today compared to the rest of the year, is this an unusual day?
Yeah, this is probably the busiest day we've had in a while, no doubt. Especially when you have two fires so close together. So that's why, it's been fairly busy today, and our crews again. I can't say it enough to speak how good our crews have worked. They will go back to the stations and get cleaned up and get freshened up and get a bite to eat, get their trucks put back in service, and we'll be ready to respond again as we are right now.
So I guess this is what it's all about. You guys are ready. There's days when it can be slow, but this is what you're ready for, right?
This is what we do. These guys and girls are professionals. This is what we do. We're ready in our region to assist. We don't obviously like going to any of this, because unfortunately that means that somebody else is suffering, and that's not what we're about. We're here to help and keep the residents of our region safe, and that's showed here today with the two fires that our crews can do that.
100 seriously dedicated athletes ignored the rain, the drizzle, and the fog to tackle the East Coast Trail Ultra Marathon on Saturday. They had to battle the slippery slopes of the trail network for 50 kilometers and then make the hard slog to the finish line at Kitty Vitty in St. John's.
It's going fantastic. It's been a wet and drudgery day, but we're all used to it. Maybe a little bit of a mental game there, but set a new course record today, and everyone's in great spirits.
Mentally, I'm on cloud 9 right now. It was, like I said, big grind, and had an awesome battle with Jordan Fuel out on the trails there. It was a great push, and stoked. I guess to everyone who can get out on the trails, we've got a fantastic trail system here. It's probably some of the most technical trails that I've run on in Canada. Get out when you can, enjoy it.
Well, this chick got up and she slapped Janet's face. Man, we just fell about the place. If that chick don't want to know, forget her.
It's a long season, and this is the only race my kids got to see me in this year, so it was a great way to finish the year.
We have a fantastic trail running community here. It's very easy for you to get in and get involved, find someone to run with. There's group runs, there's a lot going on.
I'm one of his best friends and a proud supporter of his running, 100%.
And can you tell me a little bit about why it's so special that Eric is here today?
Well, he lives in Norway and he runs over there, and well, he doesn't get to come home very often. So every few years he comes home, and this is a special time.
And you have quite the fan base here.
Yeah. It's I didn't know that anyone was coming out, so it was amazing to see that people come out like despite the terrible weather and support this total something that could easily be called crazy and pointless. It's really moving, and it's nice.
So unfortunately, due to fundraising issues and just overall financial issues, we've had to indefinitely suspend the vast majority of our operations.
Well, after nearly 40 years of operation, the future of the NL Brain Injury Association is now uncertain. All programs and services have been suspended indefinitely. We'll find out what that means for those who avail of those services coming up. An organization that's been supporting brain injury survivors over the past 40 years says it can no longer afford to offer programs and services. The Newfoundland and Labrador Brain Injury Association says its future is now uncertain. Joining me now is Nick Mercer, someone who has been involved with the association in various ways over the years. So first of all, Nick, before we talk about the financial troubles, can you tell us a bit about yourself and how your life changed back in 2003?
Well, I was doing masters of public administration at the University of Victoria, and I was training not with the triathlon team, kind of. Anyway, I went off the road, smashed my head into a tree, and the helmet too, I was wearing a helmet, so I should mention that. And ended up at home for 2 weeks, and had a severe brain injury.
Can you talk about what role the Brain Injury Association has played in your life over the years?
It's given me just being on the board has given me the ability to see raise awareness in St. John's and on Newfoundland and Labrador, but mostly St. John's.
Raise awareness
about brain injuries, and just giving me being on the board makes you feel like I'm doing something towards the community that I'm in, whether like it or not. I'm a part of this community, and so I mean that's been the main thing, and it's also with the fundraising, trying to get like fundraising dollars and trying to get some more activities going on. It's just open my eyes to the lack of the services available here and the gaps in service from, say, outpatient or for health sciences to when you're back in the community.
So now let's hear from the president of the Newfoundland and Labrador Brain Injury Association. Cletus Flaherty joins me now. So can you tell us about the status of the association right now? Where do things stand?
So unfortunately, due to fundraising issues and just overall financial issues, we've had to indefinitely suspend the vast majority of our operations. We're continuing to move forward and offer some basic informational services to those with brain injuries and their family members. However, the vast bulk of our programming we're just unable to move forward with for the foreseeable future.
What will the loss of these programs and services mean for people in the community?
It's going to be truly heartbreaking, honestly. I mean, we service a wide portion of the population. There are those who have catastrophic brain injury, and we serve those who have, just a simple concussion, which might have short-term or even long-term impacts. So the impact of the cessation of our services will be widely felt. And, we have always strived to do our best to essentially plug in the gaps that are left in the healthcare system in a lot of ways.
Your fundraising efforts haven't been going well, and that's basically at the heart of all of this. Can you tell me about those challenges and what you think is behind it?
So essentially we noticed, like a lot in society, but in particular other not-for-profits, the COVID pandemic absolutely wrecked us. Our ability to fundraise, the amount of money out there that could be provided to us. And now we've run into a situation where everyone is dealing with inflationary pressure. So you have a bunch of not-for-profits in this province across Canada that are going for the same pot of money, and unfortunately that pot it's not growing. It actually probably is still decreasing, and that's just a fact of the economic times we find ourselves in.
Yeah. What would need to happen to keep the association going?
So essentially we just need more funding. So we do receive grants from government, but unfortunately it just isn't enough. And currently we're looking for corporate sponsorship. We're hoping that the corporations, those with money, may be able to provide us some guaranteed funding too, because one of the issues we had was we have every year we don't really know how much money we're going to get. So we're still in the midst of trying to find some long-term corporate sponsors, and for anyone who sees this interview today, I would ask you to reach out to us, and whether or not it can be a small donation or it could be a potential sponsorship partnership, but that's what's really required, and that's just to get us back to where we were, but we're looking to grow even beyond that. And that's what's required. That's what the people in this province need.
ships are moving along the St. Lawrence Seaway once again, and that's because the company that oversees it has reached a tentative deal with Unifor to end a strike. No details of the agreement have been announced, but workers walked off the job 8 days ago, calling for higher wages to keep up with the cost of living. That brought a halt to traffic through the key trade corridor. The premiers of Ontario and Quebec asked the federal government to intervene if mediated talks failed to bring about a resolution. The new deal must still be ratified. Well, the new COVID-19 vaccine is now being rolled out in parts of Canada. The vaccine, which was approved by Health Canada last month, targets the XBB variant. Meanwhile, the Canadian Medical Association Journal has released a new study on the impact of COVID-19. Lauren Pelly has more on that.
Well, new data out today paints a picture of just how many Canadians might have caught COVID-19 by now, and why certain groups may still remain very much at risk of this virus. This data comes from the lower mainland of British Columbia, and it was published today in the Canadian Medical Association Journal. It suggests a vast majority of the population has already been infected at least once. The researchers relied on blood samples taken throughout different waves of the pandemic, not for people who knew they had COVID, but just people going in for blood work for different reasons. And they combined that with healthcare data to look at severe outcomes. Now, what they found was by last July, more than 80% of kids and younger adults had been infected and had a low risk of hospitalization and death. But the picture remains quite different for seniors, and in particular, the oldest adults. The researchers found more than 40% of people aged 80 and up may not have had an infection yet, while having the highest risk of hospitalization and death. So to put a number on that, their most recent data showed 1 death for every 80 newly infected seniors aged 80 and up. Scientists say the study really shows that first-time infections can still be a risk for that age group.
There has been a decrease in those severe outcome risks, but for the older segment of the population, it's still a meaningful risk to them, and particularly for those who have not yet been infected, which is a substantial proportion of the population.
Now, the authors also told me that you can really gain robust protection if you've had prior infections as well as vaccination, but that doesn't mean that people should rush out and get infected. The big takeaway for seniors, I'm told, is for them to stay up to date on COVID-19 vaccinations, including the updated shots that are rolling out this fall.
There is a real recognition here that age is probably the simplest and easiest thing to target, and you know, it's one that probably needs to be kind of front of line in most of these campaigns moving forward.
Now, of course, if you are interested in getting a COVID-19 vaccine and you have questions on your eligibility, how to time it, doctors recommend speaking to a primary care provider or your pharmacist. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, so it's time to look at the long-range forecast, but worth mentioning again for all the parents and kiddies heading out to Halloween tomorrow night that it looks like it's going to be pretty clear, cold but clear for most people.
Yeah, for the most part. I was looking at the forecast from last year, and I thought last year was cold, but it's going to be even more chilly.
Oh, really?
Unfortunately, yeah. Single digits. That is pretty cold considering it hasn't been that cold for a little while. But let's take a look at your forecast as far as the weather is concerned. There is a whole lot of clear sky there, which is nice. Now on the west coast and along the south coast of the island, we may see a few chance of a few showers, but overall it'll be fairly quiet. Now Labrador, you're looking at the chance of some flurries through the overnight period, and like I said, temperatures will be chilly into the single digits, minus single digits. The story across most of Labrador, dipping a little bit for the west. Now, as we head into Wednesday, we're looking at a fairly quiet day for most of us. We will see clouds on the increase as the day goes on. And then as we head into the evening, our next weather maker starts to move in, and that is going to bring the chance of some snow again to parts of the province and rain as well. Now, parts of the island, I should say. Labrador, you're going to sit this one out yet again with just the chance of a few scattered flurries towards the west, but overall, looking like a pretty nice day. Single digits just above zero for Happy Valley, Goose Bay and southeastern Labrador, otherwise below zero for the rest of the Big Land. And across the island, temperatures will stay in the mid single digits for the most part. Now, St. John's will sit around 8 degrees, Marystown around 7. But it will get windy, especially as we head into Thursday as the system continues to track a little bit further east. It's fairly slow moving by the time we get into Thursday. And there you go. So pretty much anything west, not including eastern Newfoundland, essentially, is going to see some snow, which at this point may be we may see some accumulation from this. Going to have to keep an eye on that one, but it will be windy through the day on Thursday, and you're also looking at rain, which will likely be heavy at times for most of eastern Newfoundland. Now, as we head into the evening hours, some of that snow may head east. But for now, just definitely keep that in mind if you have any travel plans. Once we get a bit closer, I'll certainly start talking about it. But for Labrador, you're generally looking at those temperatures, the clear skies through the afternoon. And as far as temperatures are concerned, you're still going to hover around the 0 degree mark, and then across the island anywhere from 1 to about 5 degrees. Now, long range forecast showing by Friday we'll start to clear out again. Saturday, looking at the chance of some showers. Temperatures are warming up and will continue to warm up even more as we get into the end of the week. And then for central Newfoundland, those flurries for Thursday, or snow, I should say, for Thursday, 2 degrees, and our daytime highs by the time we get into Friday, Saturday, around anywhere from 5 to 7 degrees for eastern and western Newfoundland. Now for Labrador, you're looking at flurries by the time we get into Friday and Saturday, temperatures dropping below zero, and then well below zero for western Labrador, especially as we get into the overnight periods. Now, as far as our weather photo of the day, it's a beautiful morning in Collier. Thank you to Carrie for that lovely shot. Got some fall colors in there.
Very, very nice, Carrie.
Very nice. If you have any to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
It's like a burning bush there on the
Something
bottom.
like that. I did notice coming in yesterday, windy on the airplane, but the colors are gorgeous from the sky.
It really
Yesterday
has
was a beautiful day.
Taken a real turn over the past few days, for sure.
All in my backyard.
Yeah, a lot of wind pulling the leaves off the trees, but oh well. All right, well, that is it for us on this Monday evening. Thank you so much for spending part of your night with us.
Good night.